Welcome to the Purposeful CEO podcast, the space for passionate, driven leaders who aren't just here to build a business, but to lead a movement. If you're here to make a real impact, to lead with purpose and create a legacy that lasts, then you are in the right place. I'm Emma Campbell, leadership coach, mindset mentor, purpose activator, and mama to two cheeky little munchkins. And for the past 15 years, I've helped small business CEOs scale their team without breaking their culture and unlock their team's full potential. And my mission has always been simple: to help those doing good in the world to do even more good and inspire belief in what's possible for you, because it's all so possible. Let each episode be your reminder to pause from the hustle and come back to you, your why, your purpose, your reason for why you started, to trust that inner knowing and to lead from that place, because when you do, everyone wins. Let's dive in. Oh, hello. Happy Tuesday. Had to take a moment there to remember what day it was. We are just entering the school holidays. My kids have teamed up with their cousins to go to Aqua, the aquarium down at Hillary's, with my mum, who is a little bit nervous about having 4 kids all on her own. But I know she's going to be amazing and she'll be fine. And the kids have just been so excited, waking me up at 5:30 this morning, all dressed and ready to go, and just so excited to hang out with their cousins and just go and have a day of fun, and leaving me to be able to hang out in my beautiful office and record you a podcast and introduce a free new masterclass that I've got coming up really soon, which I'm so excited about and I know is going to be deeply, deeply valuable and beneficial for you guys, particularly given where we are right now with this interesting state of affairs with our economy and the changes that have been occurring, and how sometimes this can manifest in some feelings of fear. And I just know that this masterclass that I've got coming up, a free one, which is called 3 Ways to Boost Team Morale Without Pay Rises or Bonuses, which is on the 7th of May. It's a free masterclass for small business owners, for leaders, for CEOs who might be feeling like their team needs a little bit of a pep up, who might be needing a little bit of a reigniting of their spark. And basically, I'm going to share with you the psychology behind motivation and engagement, because one of the key things that I hear over and over and over from primarily new clients, when they first come to talk to me, their number one question that they come to me with is, team morale is down. We want to introduce this new bonus scheme, this new incentive scheme. Can you have a look at it for us before we roll it out? And I always say the same thing to them, that yes, I am so happy to have a look at this incentive scheme. And can we first find out if this is actually what the team wants and needs? And so usually we'll go and do a team engagement pulse check, where we'll actually look at the what's going on behind the scenes of their culture and see if their team actually does indeed want more money and does want an incentive scheme or not. And 99% of the time, that it's not pay, it's not bonus that the team is asking for. It's actually all these other things. It's these other 3 key things that I'm going to share with you, which is more deeply rooted and connected to our psychology, our deep intrinsic motivators as human beings, which most of us are never taught and that we don't know. But once we understand how human beings work, we can actually play to unlocking their potential in a much greater way. So this is going to be the masterclass. So 3 ways to boost team morale without pay rises or bonuses, and where you'll discover 3 powerful ways to re-energize your team morale, to unlock highest performance and potential, and ultimately build a thriving team without spending more, without having to fork out more cash on the issue. And so the details to that masterclass are in the show notes below. So please register for that one because spots will be limited, and it's on the 7th of May. And this topic that we're talking about here today is very, very deeply related to this. So today we're talking about like the hidden cost of just one underperforming or one toxic team employee and what to do about it. And if you know me well enough by now, if you've been tuning into the pod for a little while, you'll know that I'm not usually one to talk about like the negatives. I'm not a fearmongerer. I am not one to kind of cause alarm bells. If anything, I sort of play on the other side of the spectrum. I'm like, all is well, we're good, all is fine. Here's the steps on how to move forward. And when it comes to toxic employees in the workplace, I have seen over and over and over and over again the impact that just one individual toxic employee can have on your entire business. And I think this is such an important topic to talk about, because if we don't cast a light of awareness around what's really going on when you've got one toxic employee or one bad apple, and the ripple effect that that bad apple can have on the rest of the fruit bunch. Sorry, not to call a team a fruit bunch, but you get the analogy. If we don't create some awareness here, it is often one of those issues that can kind of skate underneath the surface for way too long. And slowly but surely, as any bad apple would do if sitting amongst other apples, it can slowly permeate through to the rest of the team. Slowly but surely, that toxicity just has this contagious effect onto other employees, because there's no doubt about it, negativity can be really, really strong because we have this negativity bias within our brains. So if we know we have a toxic employee, and I'm going to help you kind of identify that today, if we know we have a toxic employee, your number one job as a leader, as a CEO, as a business owner, is to do something about this so fast. Like there is no way that you can do this wrong, in a sense, as long as you are jumping on it as fast as you possibly can. The quicker, the better. Obviously, you want to do it with intention, do it strategically, compassionately, all of those sort of things. But you will find out by the end of this podcast as to why this is the one most important job for you to be doing and how it can actually transform everything. So let us dive in. Let me guess. You've got someone on your team who is draining the positive energy from the room, or maybe they're just draining the positive energy from your room. Maybe they're technically kind of doing their job. They might be like ticking the boxes, but something is off in terms of their attitude, in terms of their alignment with your vision, with your values. Maybe they're like whinging, they're constantly negative. Maybe they're like just doing the bare minimum to get by without kind of being criticized, but you're like, that it's not enough. Maybe they're really resistant to feedback, and you've been trying to have these conversations, but they kind of come back at you, or they get defensive, and that like the feedback's just not landing. Maybe they're stirring up drama, and they're kind of like often at the center of gossip. Maybe they've been actually negatively impacting other team members, and that you can see other team members are actually like not showing up with their highest light because this team member is making them feel small. And you can just sort of like quietly see them undermining the culture that you're working so hard to build. If that is sounding familiar, then these are some of those telltale signs of toxic employees. And when it comes to culture, the biggest disruptor is having these toxic employees or these bad apples. So what is a toxic employee or a bad apple? And I don't really actually like the term bad apple because I don't believe that anyone is bad, but I think you get the idea that something in terms of their energy, their attitude has gone a little bit awry, or kind of gone a little bit off, and that it's starting to have a little bit of a negative ripple effect on others. So a toxic employee is an employee in the workplace who engages in behaviour that can be harmful to your culture, can be harmful to productivity and just overall your operational systems and your operations. These behaviors can manifest in lots of different ways, which I've already given you a couple of examples there, but it could just be like a negative attitude. It could be gossiping, like talking about people behind their back. It could be kind of bullying / aggressive, maybe even sort of like manipulative behavior. It could be just that they're like a bit uncooperative, maybe undermining others. And, on the other end of the spectrum, they could actually be creating a bit of a hostile work environment for others. And the really tricky thing about toxic employees, and as I was saying, they can kind of manifest in lots of different ways, is one of the things that I've seen quite often is that sometimes a toxic employee can be kept on for way too long because they might be these like star performers in certain parts of their role. So they might be really loved by a particular member of the leadership team because maybe, let's say hypothetically, they're really good salespeople. So they're really good at like business development, really good at getting sales across the line and like driving revenue for the business. Or they might be seen as being really good in that respect. But they are not living the values. They are making other people feel small. They are talking to other people in a disrespectful manner within the team. And there's kind of like this contrast that can go on where like people make excuses for them because they're these star performers in these other areas of the role. And they can often get labelled as irreplaceable. But the thing is, often with toxic employees, and what I have seen a lot in my role, is that sometimes they create that sense of irreplaceability through their toxic behavior. And that when you dive a little bit deeper, you actually recognize that this person is not irreplaceable and that actually like the costs really outweigh the benefits in terms of what they're giving to the business. And I'll explain a little bit more about that in a second. Sometimes these toxic employees are kept on for too long because of multiple different reasons. One of those being maybe they're high performers in one side of the role. Sometimes it's because, and if you're listening to this podcast, there's a good chance that you kind of fit into this category, that you might be like a really kind, forgiving, compassionate, big-hearted, empathetic individual, and you might have like really, really good hopes for them being able to change and grow. Let me know if that sounds familiar at all. And you might be really optimistic, like hoping for the best, giving them the benefit of the doubt and just thinking like, maybe if I do this and I give them enough training and support and mentoring and coaching, maybe they'll improve their performance. And that you actually end up doing that for way too long. And then it ends up being way past their probationary period. And it's like too hard for you to let them go. And then you have to go through all the formal performance management side and you're like, God damn it, why didn't I jump onto it sooner? Sometimes, and this might fit into both of these, both these pieces might feel true for you. Sometimes we're just afraid of having that difficult conversation. Like we're afraid / we just don't really know how to have that conversation. Like, what exactly would I say? Maybe you don't want to rock the boat. You don't want to create awkwardness. You don't want to be seen as the bad guy. And while everyone else tiptoes around this person, you're left kind of holding that emotional weight, wondering, oh, is it me? Like, am I the only one noticing this? Am I overreacting? Should I just write it out? Maybe they're not so bad. Maybe I should be firmer, or should I be kinder? Should I be more patient? Should I be compassionate? Should I hold them more accountable? And there's like all these questions around like, what the right path is for you. Like, are you doing enough? And this can be a really tricky piece of asking yourself, like, at the end of the day, is this something that I need to jump on or not? And one of the questions that I often encourage leaders to check in with themselves on is whether they're bar raisers or bar lowerers for your team culture. So are they the team member who is overall elevating and raising the bar for your culture in terms of your standards and performance and all of that? Or are they lowering it? And you'll pretty instantly know the answer to that. If they kind of sit somewhere in the middle, then, then it might require some further investigation there. But if they are completing their role requirements, but they're just like not a good fit for your culture and your values, then they might just be bar lowerers rather than bar risers, bringing the average for the group down rather than up. And if they are that person, then that gives you your first sign that something needs to change here. And that's when you might need to go back to kind of like your list of like, what is actually off with this employee? Where are they not aligned to expectations? Is it a role thing, like a performance thing, that I can actually hold them accountable to some really specific KPIs, objectives, or measurable outcomes? Or what is often trickier to manage is if it's like more of an attitude or a values thing. And that's where we need to come back to our values and making sure we've got really clearly defined values and really clearly defined standards of behavior that align to each of those values, because then that becomes our blueprint for holding team members accountable to your values and makes those difficult conversations a lot easier. So if you don't have those, then that's a really, really key piece that will help with that. But one way or another, if you're listening to this podcast, I feel like deep down you kind of know the truth already, right? You know that you've got a misaligned or toxic team member, and you know that it's costing you. You know that there's kind of some sort of hidden cost there of keeping this person in the team. You know that it's having an impact on morale, on momentum, on your bottom line, and you want to know what to do about it, right? And here's the thing. There's no doubt about it. If this person in your team has kind of been on your mind for a little while, it's likely that they have been draining your precious mental space, your time, your energy, which is so precious, right? Particularly if you are a parent or just like a human, right? That like there are so many demands of our time, and we don't want to be wasting our time and our energy thinking about team members that are just damaging our culture, when you could be using that energy, driving your team or your business forward. Maybe you're thinking about this employee when you'd rather be enjoying family time at the beach or weekends, or, maybe they're even, depending on how bad this has been getting, maybe they're even keeping you up at night, when of course you would rather be cuddling up to your partner or sleeping or reading a book. One way or another, yes, there are these personal impacts of having a toxic employee. And I want to share with you some of the facts and the research on what a toxic or a bad apple can have on your organization. And these ones are the ones that I hope will, if you've sort of been sitting on the fence about what to do, that it might give you a gentle little lovely kick in the butt to take some action. And I know it will just be the biggest gift for your team and for yourself. So here's some stats. So one bad apple can increase turnover for your entire organization and make it 54% more likely that other team members will quit. Crazy, right? 54% more likely that other team members will quit, and it increases turnover for your entire organization just having one bad apple. So if turnover has not been great, like employee turnover has not been great for your organization, maybe you want to have a look at the bad apples and see if any of that has been impacting it. One single toxic employee on a team of 20 will cost over $25,000 per year due to increased voluntary turnover and absenteeism alone. $25,000 per year for one single toxic employee. It can cost employees up to 3 times more in hiring fees. It can increase other team members' stress. And this is probably a really big one that doesn't necessarily have a specific numerical number that I can put to this, but I have seen it time and time again, and I'm sure you have as well, is like the impact on the rest of the team's stress, tension, burnout, absenteeism, the damage on the culture, engagement, teamwork, that sense of like psychological safety and feeling like you are safe to be yourself at work and, bring your full self to work. It can decrease productivity and use up your precious resources and time. Can also, like a really big one, is damage your employer brand and your reputation. So there's some really, really giant pieces here in terms of how a toxic employee can impact not only you at your personal level, but your team and also your organization and the turnover in your bottom line. So now that I have really dropped some heavy nuggets of negativity at you, which so does not feel aligned, but I share these things because I know that sometimes we need to hear them to actually drive us to change. Like, we need to hear those facts. I want to share some good news with you. If you have a toxic employee, there is a way out. And I think, I know that you taking action on actually doing something about this toxic employee can actually turn things around so fast for your organization. So it'll be the biggest gift to your team and culture. So the first thing that you want to do, the first thing is, one way or another, you need to have a clear conversation with this team member. So with a balance of curiosity and clarity, right? We need to be curious about, what's going on for you, what's been happening, understanding what might be going on for them underneath the surface. Because if we think about the times that we've been underperforming in our own lives, or that we haven't been at our best, usually there's a deeper root cause that's impacting our behavior, right? So we're kind of walking into that conversation with the balance of curiosity, but also clarity around expectations. Because at the end of the day, yes, they're allowed to be going through some struggles on the inside, and they still need to show up and perform in their role and live our values, right? So one way or another, a conversation needs to be had. And if you need support on how to show up to that conversation, just reach out, because I know that in itself can be a really delicate one to show up to. And the second piece that I think is a really important piece that a lot of my clients that I've worked with have got a lot of benefit from is diving just a little bit deeper into the issue before jumping into action. So getting curious and asking, what what could be leading to this behavior? Like, is there something deeper below the surface, either at an individual level or even at a collective organizational level, that could be impacting their motivation, that could be impacting their happiness, their engagement, or their performance? Like, is there something in our culture, in our systems, um, in our structure of how we organize things here and how we get our work done, or our leadership style, that could be impacting things? And sometimes the only way to actually find this out, apart from having a one-to-one conversation, which sometimes can be tricky to ask all the things in a one-to-one conversation and get like full honesty and transparency in that conversation, is to actually do a team engagement pulse check with your entire team. Because when you do a team engagement pulse check, you can actually ask a whole bunch of different questions and understand the data. Like, rather than it be like a kind of like a subjective, individual, emotional conversation that could go, could be impacted in so many different ways, for you to ask the same questions to a group of people and see what general themes emerge from that. Because you might find that there's certain parts of your culture that you're absolutely killing it at, like that you're doing incredibly, and they're real strengths for your culture in terms of how you lead and move forward. And there might be parts of your culture and your systems and your leadership that are actually blind spots for you, and that could be real opportunities for how you shift the entire team and boost their entire morale moving forward. Because at the end of the day, like, how can you judge the situation until you have the full picture, right? And sometimes to get that full picture, we do need to dive a little bit deeper and find out what else could be going on here. Is it an individual thing? Or is there something more at the collective level that we could shift, and actually we'd get a boost in performance and motivation across the board? Because there could be opportunities there that would allow not only this individual to shift, but your entire team or organization to reach their whole next level. And rather than like, as the saying goes, throw spaghetti at the wall and see what sticks, if you're doing it like a team engagement pulse check, you actually have like the clear data to help you understand, like, where are the levers that we need to pull? Where is the low-hanging fruit that actually, if we change this one thing here, that it could actually shift everything else? And in my eyes, that's a really smart way to go about it, right? Like, let the data do the thinking for you. And so that is what would be my recommendation. Conversation with them, like having a one-to-one, and dive a bit deeper into like doing a team engagement pulse check. And I usually recommend doing that through an external party so that your team can actually feel like they can really trust that it's full anonymity, that there's like full confidentiality, privacy, all of those sort of things, so that they can really be honest and open in their responses. If you want to talk about how to roll one of those out, really happy to chat. And I hope that podcast topic has been helpful for you in one, identifying whether you indeed have a toxic employee, and helping you really get clear on like the impact that they could be having for your team. Because if there's one last thing that I will share here, in every organization that I have first started working with, it's usually around identifying and addressing one toxic team member. And the shift that this has on the organization is always like beyond words. The CEO always comes to me and says, "Oh my God, Em, why did we not do this sooner? Like, I can't believe how long we let this linger for, and I can't believe what a shift it's made going forward. So if you want to talk through any of that, I'm so here for it. And once again, I'll drop the link to that free masterclass that I'm running on the 7th of May in the show notes below. 3 ways to boost your team morale without pay rises or bonuses. I trust that this podcast has been invaluable for your team culture. Reach out for any questions on the topic. Here always to support you and your team's greatest good. And yeah, would always be open to have a chat with you. Sending so much love. Thank you so much for listening. If you got value from this episode, I've got a little request for you. Either share it with a fellow leader who you know needs this in their life, or leave a super quick review. It only takes a few seconds, yet it helps us so much in expanding our reach and our impact and bringing on even bigger names onto the potty to then inspire your growth and your journey. I love and appreciate you so much. Thank you in advance, and I can't wait to see you next time.